Okay, so this video is for those of you who've been told that you're singing off key or you're singing off tune, off pitch, and you're not quite sure what they even mean by that. So this video is going to be for you. Let me break down exactly what this means. And I'll also share with you some steps, some ideas for you to get started so you can start to sing on key, on pitch, and in tune again. Now, real quick, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ivan. I'm a voice teacher who works with students from all around the world over Zoom. And really on this channel, my goal is to make learning how to sing as simple and as easy as possible. So if that is up your lane, consider subscribing wherever you're joining me from. If you're interested in working with me, I've got links down in the description on how you can work with me privately over Zoom. And if you want to inspire our next episode, let me also know down in the comments what you want me to talk about next. Anyway, let's dive in. So a good place to start here is what even is a key in music? And so if you imagine a piano, or if you're watching, the video here and you see the piano on the bottom, say we play only the white keys. You see on this left here, I've got, C3. What if I played only the white keys and I went all the way up to a C4? Now, notice there is a pretty, recognizable sound. It kind of sounds like do, re, mi, right? This is actually something known as a C major scale. Now, one thing that's important to note is that often these scales will become the foundation of a song. They'll become the key of a song. Basically, what I mean by this is imagine if you've got a band. You've got someone on the keys, you've got someone playing, the guitar, you've got someone even playing the bass, right? They would generally play notes, especially if it's in the key of C, one of these white notes that we've talked about. This is why we call it the key of the song. It is generally a lower chance that you might play one of these black notes because they're going to be outside the key of C. Now let's give another example. What if the first note wasn't a C and in fact it was actually a D instead? If I play the D major scale, so it's still going to sound a bit like do, re, mi, but I start on the D instead. You'll now notice that there are actually two black keys here, right? So for those of you who can't see, this is the F sharp, and then there's also the C sharp. The same rules will generally apply, the vocals, the bass, the guitar, they'll usually sing a note on this scale or on this key. So then what does off key mean then? As you might have guessed, off key just really means when you aren't singing the intended notes. Now, say for example, you're in the key of C again, all the white notes, and the melody, the intended note is a G, singing on a G. But then you might accidentally sing an A sharp, so you're not really singing the intended note. That's what we mean by off key. Now, generally that's a pretty big kind of like disparity. Sometimes you might just be singing slightly out of key or slightly off pitch, which means maybe you're meant to sing a G, but you're singing like slightly above the G or slightly below it. We usually use the terms sharp or flat. Both of this is usually what people refer to when you're singing off key or singing out of tune. Now, a quick caveat, there is a slight difference between singing out of key and also singing off pitch. For example, you might have a melody like this. So that's C, D, E, D, C. But then you end up singing this instead. E, F, G, F, E. So technically those notes are actually in the key of C, right? They're one of the white notes, but they aren't the notes that you're intending to sing. Now, if you are intending to do it and you're doing it on purpose and it sounds good, sometimes you might consider that a harmony because guess what if I play them together? They kind of sound pretty cool. Now, it's also possible to sing notes outside of a key, but still be on pitch. Now, this is usually when singers will borrow notes outside of a key to add little flavors, add little accidentals to make the singing a bit more interesting. But I think for the purposes of everyone listening here today, focus here, see if you can sing within the key that is designated and see if you can sing it on pitch. Okay, so now that we've defined what exactly is a key, you have an idea of what it means to be singing out of key, off key, out of pitch. How do we actually correct this challenge and be able to sing the correct notes? Now, I've talked about this a few times on this podcast, on this channel, but singing on pitch is actually a combination of a few things. The first one that people will usually do is they'll go and do some ear trainings. They might go on like some singing apps and they try to hear what this interval is, or like, is this higher or lower, which can be really, really good work. But this is just one piece of the puzzle because even if you can hear the right intervals, you can hear the right notes, if you can't control your vocal folds well, you're still going to be singing out of tune. And that's why the second part here is you do need to develop the mechanics of the voice. What does it feel like to change pitch accurately? There are very specific muscles that help you stretch and thin out the vocal folds. So this is one of the fundamentals that I consider in singing, and it's important for everyone to actually get good at. Because if you don't know what it feels like to change pitch efficiently, how do you expect yourself to be able to sing higher or actually even sing on pitch? Now, if this sounds like something that you haven't really heard of before, then I would recommend checking out some of the previous episodes, especially episode 129, where I guide a student through isolating this kind of stretching mechanism, this feeling of like changing pitch. I guide them through this process. Now, the third thing here is then choosing the right complexity, because even if you had a decent ear, you have a general idea of how to change pitch with your vocal folds, you know how to stretch and thin them out. If the song is really hard, it's fast, it's got a lot of range in it, you can still fall out of key. So it's important to find a song or even a scale. It's not out of your skill level at the moment. And so that's why often when I'm working with students, especially if they're really trying to develop the voice, we might start off with a very simple scale and feel it correctly, be on pitch, get the mechanics correct, and then slowly build back up to the level of a song. Anyway, I hope you found this episode useful. This is what people mean when you're singing out of key, and I've also shared with you some initial steps, some initial pointers on how you can work around them. If you found this useful, please leave a 5-star review if you're on the podcast. Really, really means the world to me. If you're on any social media like YouTube, TikTok, that kind of thing, I like, comment, subscribe, or sharing it with a friend who you feel like this information could really help. That means the world to me as well. Apart from that, my name is Ivan. I'm your voice teacher. If you're interested in working with me over Zoom, links down in the description. Also got some self-study programs that you can work through in a step 1, step 2, step 3 manner. I'll see you next week. Take care.